Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the January Ohio Workforce Coalition webinar. I am super excited to be your presenter today and to celebrate the coalition, talk a bit about what we have planned, what we have accomplished over the years, what we have planned for the foreseeable future, and how you can get involved in the work. We are joined today by an exciting group of people who have either served on the leadership committee over the years or supported the work as a national partner. And we're going to be hearing from them throughout the session. So I would like to go ahead and just run through our agenda quickly. If you could go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat with your name, organization, and recollection of your first engagement with OWC. I'm interested in seeing the whole spectrum of folks who are participating today. We are then going to celebrate the work that the coalition has accomplished over the years, talk about what's up next, how to engage, and then have an open discussion where you'll be able to sign up for engagement going forward. So we're gonna kick off today with sharing a bit about the coalition. It was formally organized in 2007 in response to a report that was written by community research partners and indicated that of the individuals under 200% of poverty in Ohio, 70% of them were actually working. And this really sort of confronted the narrative that folks were staying home and didn't want to work, and really caused a lot of us to be thinking about how we could help people advance and increase their earnings over time. This report, that statistic is still relevant today as we think about how we come back from COVID, racial justice issues, and the current economic crisis. And so, as we think about what we want to know and need to know going forward, I think it's great that we've got that to look back upon. So we have been historically focused on adult workforce and education issues, anything from the Ohio College Opportunity Grant to the Ohio's very first adventure with industry sector partnerships and the Industry Workforce Alliance grants back in the day. We worked some on Ohio Skills Bank projects, adult literacy, and at some point back then, I wrote a report encouraging local areas to standardize WIA policies. That was a lot of fun, let me tell you. I got a few earfuls as far as standardizing that policy, but we've come a long way. We began engaging with the National Skills Coalition State Policy Network SkillSpan in 2021, and we've really been rebuilding. We've got new policy priorities that are very system focused. We've added an emphasis on job quality and racial equity, and we're really focused on building the network and sharing information with anyone who is engaging in the coalition. So we do a fair amount of trying to make connections, make sure those of you out in the field who are doing this work really have some insight into what's happening in state and federal policy conversations, whether they're legislative or executive in nature. So as I mentioned, we're going to feature some of our current and leaders from over time, and we're going to kick it off with the Literacy Cooperative team. And I think I recruited, Bob will tell you how long it's been, but I think I recruited him to join the leadership committee not that long after this all started. So excited to hear from Bob Papinetti. Bob?
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, it's interesting when I received the email from Rebecca earlier this month about this 15-year anniversary and putting this Zoom together. Just a couple of weeks prior to that, during the holidays, I went into my office and I was cleaning out old files. I can tend to be a bit of a pack rat. And so I thought I need to clear out some space. And I came across my old OWC file, the Ohio Workforce Coalition. And I have here our public policy platform from 2009. So I think it was around that time that I joined the Workforce Coalition, coming down to Columbus, to meet at the offices of Community Research Partners with Bobby Garber, and then meeting Carrie and Ross Meyer and many others. And I valued those meetings. I really enjoyed those trips to Columbus. Because it really, even looking at the policy agenda, the kind of the tagline is support workers, meet employer needs, change the system. That's what we were there to do, but we were looking at that from different viewpoints. And, everybody I felt was very passionate about their viewpoint. And we had a lot of very interesting conversations and discussions. Didn't always agree with one another on how we were going about it. But, you knew down deep, everybody who was in that room talking about it cared about it and really wanted to look at how they could make it change. So it was also good to get, conversation about different things that were happening. And I do remember specifically learning about the Health Careers Collaborative in Cincinnati, and what a great idea that was. And I remember bringing Bill Letcher, I think that's his name, Janice, up to Cleveland to meet with, some of the people at the hospital systems here in Cleveland. And, I like to think it was the genesis and seed for what is now Step Up to UH. I remember meeting with, I think his name was Elliot Kellman for University Hospital, and Debbie Perkle was there in the room, and Elliot said, "What a great idea. Why aren't we doing this?" And I'm like, yeah, why not? And, they started, Debbie primarily was really leading that charge, but looking at how to put career pathways in place and really recognizing the need. And I think Bill and Ross did in Cincinnati, that literacy is an issue. And so it was really exciting. But I think, Rebecca, you've been the constant. You've been the one that has really continued to keep the good work going. So thank you for all the years of doing that and getting more people in and really keeping the mission focused. So thank you for your work.
Appreciate that, Bob. Well, Bob handed the torch to Lori, and Lori's been engaging with us for several years now. But Lori, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Lori Atkins. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for the Literacy Cooperative, and I also sit on the Leadership Committee currently of the Ohio Workforce Coalition, as well as the Executive Committee, and we are currently fiscal agent for OWC. I think for me, what I really like and why I'm a part of this is just that we've been able to align our agenda, our policy agenda at the Literacy Cooperative to OWC's to ensure that workers really with low literacy have representation and access to career pathway opportunities. Bob mentioned the Step Up to UH. There's a lot of different things that we've done with introducing contextualized curriculum to workforce development professionals so that they can incorporate that for individuals that need that advancing of literacy skills. And I also value the opportunity that OWC has given us to be the collective voice to policymakers, both on the state and federal level. And so I really enjoy the time that I've been a part of this. And I just feel that I feel very productive being connected to it.
Thanks, Lori. Appreciate that. And you'll hear more stories throughout the session about how leadership has engaged with the coalition over time. If you're just joining us, please do go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat with your name and organization, and let us know what you remember about your first engagement with the coalition. So this made me laugh. I went through time and pulled out some of our old logos to just jog everyone's memory. So these are just examples of where we've come from a branding perspective, with the most recent being on the right. And that has sort of evolved over time, but we've maintained somewhat of a similar look. We're going to do a poll here. And let's see. Whoops. Can you see the poll? Is it letting you answer it?
Not at the moment.
Let's try this relaunch. There we go. So I'm interested in how many of those of you here today have been along for the ride or are newer to the coalition, just as we think through different engagement strategies. So doesn't look like maybe it's letting you answer still. Give you another second. Okay, well, we're just gonna,
There we go.
Okay, there we go. I think maybe I was trying to run the poll and I should let other people just handle that. So great. I mean, this is a nice sort of split of those who've responded. We've got some new energy as well as folks who've been around for a minute. And I think it'll be interesting to see the different ways that we can engage with everyone. So the Ohio Workforce Coalition, as I mentioned, has been working on policy discussions for many years. We began engaging with federal policy discussions when the National Skills Coalition was the Workforce Alliance, way back almost around when we started. We've been recognized by the National Skills Coalition for our engagement in the Skills Summit. We've been known to have 12 to 14 Hill visits when we go to DC for the Skills Summit. Bashara Addison, one of our leadership members, has been recognized as the social media or social butterfly for promoting NSC work. And then leadership committee members have been invited to participate in various national boards to share their expertise about particular subject matters. You can see in those pictures that we have lots of fun. Carrie Cart, one of our longtime leadership committee members, has been known to chase down Senator Brown. We're surprised she hasn't, been tackled yet. But in 2016, we actually were able to have meetings with both of Ohio's U.S. senators and to talk about issues that we're pressing to the state. So exciting to see that momentum continue. We are getting ready for the virtual summit next month, and we'll continue our history of meeting with the federal delegation.
Thanks,
So,
Rebecca,
Melissa
you just had to call me out, didn't you?
Of course, we're celebrating, Carrie.
I am not a stalker.
So Melissa
birthday.
Johnson is here with the National Skills Coalition to say just a little bit about our engagement with them. She is our skills span contact. And then we'll hear from Janice Urbanik, who I hope I appropriately labeled, gave you a new title, Janice. So I hope that's appropriate. Melissa.
So thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm Melissa Johnson. I'm the Managing Director of State Strategies and National Skills Coalition. And first of all, I want to say, Carrie, that's spirited advocacy. I would not call any of that stalking. So appreciate that. We are entering our 22nd year at National Skills Coalition, and the relationship between Ohio Workforce Coalition and National Skills Coalition, as Rebecca just said, it goes back a long ways. So beginning in 2009 with the Skills Summit, and then for the better part of our history as an organization, we've also been working with states to advance state policy. And as our CEO, Andy Van Clunen, likes to say, we are working to change the rules of who gets to succeed in this economy. And we cannot do that without state partners like Ohio Workforce Coalition, especially in a state as important as Ohio, the 7th largest state in the nation, and a state that's always important to federal policy. And I know that even our work on state policy with OWC has gone back almost 10 years. So there's that history as well. And then in 2019, when we launched our first ever national network of nonpartisan coalitions who are focused on advancing state skills policy, OWC was already ahead of the curve and joined us in our first full set of state coalitions. Started that work in 2020 and continued in 2021. And we really value all of your work while in this coalition. As a former state advocate myself in Georgia, I know that it is tough work. And you all are fighting the good fight and getting results. The millions that you've gotten lately for broadband access, the defense that you have done against work requirements, the study committee on benefits cliffs, like you all have done all of that work, and we appreciate all of that hard work, and we're glad to be in partnership with you all.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate that. And, certainly can't do it with all sorts of partners. And one of our leadership committee, former leadership committee leaders is Janice, who went to a national partner. Hi, Janice. Welcome back.
Hi there. Thank you. Glad to be here. A lot of folks know, but not everybody. I retired a few months ago and have been very, very much enjoying it. But, kind of keeping my eyes and ears open a little bit. And when Rebecca asked me to participate today, I was just messaging with Bashara, like, you can never say no to Rebecca. So, it's like, because she's just a force to be reckoned with, and I wanted to support her as any way that I could. So my experience with the Ohio Workforce Coalition, I had zero public policy experience, and I was frankly scared shitless about it. I had no idea what to do, how to do it. It just was like this foreign concept to me. And by participating with OWC and getting connected to this wonderful set of resources who were very good at public policy, very good at building relationships with legislators. It just gave me a ton of confidence and helped me understand what an individual and what an organization can do to influence policy, and also help us. When I was working in Cincinnati, then also nationally, help make, kick around ideas and make ideas better. So just as an FYI, that one of those pictures when we were with Senator Portman, standing next to me was Margaret Holbert. And I've actually gotten Margaret. Margaret's going to be doing a presentation for my church on public policy advocacy, because our church has decided, as we're on our journey around racial reconciliation and racial justice, that we want to get more actively engaged in public policy. So Margaret is going to be leading a training for our church. And so that's another way that OWC has affected me. It's also given me the confidence to bring that idea and bring resources to my faith community. So hopefully that all goes well. And then just one last thing is, I'm a constituent of Congressman Warren Davidson, and being in retirement has given me time to be a bit of a thorn in elected officials' sides, because now I have time to email them as an individual. And he puts out a weekly newsletter that incenses me most of the time. And one time I just said, look, I have workforce experience. I would be happy to spend some time and talk to you about employment policy and workforce policy. And I got a call last night. They're going to take me up on that. So I've been furiously emailing my former colleagues at the National Fund, and I knew this call was happening today. And then Melissa, I've reached out to some folks at NSC to say, help me get up to speed, because it's been a few months, and what should I be talking to Warren Davidson about? So if anybody on here wants to help me with that, please let me know.
Thank you, Janice. Appreciate that. And actually, that sets us up perfectly for our next poll, which is, who has participated in or led meetings with public officials? We've had a lot of discussion over the years about whether different organizations can advocate. Would love to hear who of you have actually done that. Okay, so some engage. I'm glad that no one on this call is so far saying they avoid them, but it is okay if you avoid them. I think Janice avoided them for a little while. All right. Great, so we're going to move on again. So as we think about engaging our public officials and what work we want to get done, we've really taken an opportunity to organize our efforts in two distinct streams, building the network and advancing public policy. So essentially, you can think of it as us building and engaging our network to be able to more effectively educate and promote strong public policy. On our new website, we go into building the network engaging the network, developing policy ideas, and then advocating for those ideas. And I'll say more about our specific priorities right now, but again, just want to give you a sense of the types of work that's happening. I think the point that either Bob or Janice made about the brainstorming and the conversations that happen, I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of us, I think, don't have the time or opportunity to really have those policy related discussions. And we have had spirited debates about what we should support, what we should let go, where our sweet spot is, and so on. And increasingly, we're having those conversations with important partners and other advocates in the space, because there's certainly a lot more activity around workforce and talent than there was 15 years ago. So to give you a sense of who's involved with the coalition right now, we've got about 800 people who are actively subscribed to updates and information. So they've opted in and not unsubscribed. We've got regular participation in monthly webinars like this, and we're continually working to see increased clicks in our monthly newsletter, and just being able to tell how members are engaging with us. From a policy perspective, as Bob mentioned, we've typically focused on 3 areas: individuals, businesses, and systems. And so broadly speaking, our most recent public policy priorities are the creation of a flexible supportive service fund so that individuals, regardless of their employment status or residency status, have access to the funds they need to advance themselves. We have been working with a variety of different projects to really push job quality, and would love to see the creation of a quality employer designation, which elevates and highlights and recognizes companies that are really investing in their workers, while also incenting other companies to do the same. And then when we talk about strengthening the public workforce system, that's been sort of a regular theme. And we're not talking about just the WIOA system or just post-secondary education. It's sort of the comprehensive look at how all of those systems work together and what we can do to help them work more effectively together. And an example of that is, just late last year, early this year, I've met with the Office of Workforce Transformation to better understand the data that's coming back from the tech cred funds and who's accessing those funds, what do the reimbursements look like, what types of certifications are being earned. And, I think developing that partnership to help get better data out to the field, but also be able to react to what we're seeing in the data is an important step in strengthening some of those systems. I want to turn now to Hope and Bashara, both of whom definitely have done their fair share of data work, but you don't have to talk about data or policy priorities. Want to introduce yourselves, Hope?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can.
Hope Arthur. I am with the Health Collaborative in the Greater Cincinnati region. I'm the Director of Workforce Innovation. I actually started on this role. It was funny listening to Bob talk with the references back to the Health Careers Collaborative. That was where I started under the leadership of Janice Urbanik. So I'm kind of feeling like I'm having a lot of nostalgia today. But I have to say, working with the OWC has been incredible. And much like Janice said, the idea of doing advocacy to me was terrifying. And my first real engagement was going to the National Skills Coalition, gathering the Skills Summit, and knowing that we were going to be doing these visits on the Hill, which none of that, I didn't even have the right shoes. I mean, it started from that level. So anyway, it was a phenomenal experience, and the camaraderie and the information share, the thought leadership just impressed me from day one. And then when I was asked to be part of it, it was just really an honor. But I think some of the things that, as far as the reason it's so important to me, is I do healthcare workforce, which puts me going into various areas at a very deep level. And working with the leadership committee and all the different parts of the state and parts of the work helps me get the broad view back in. And that has influenced so much of our thinking and helped. And especially when you start talking about categories like racial equity and inclusion work. And that's been a lot of conversations, and access and broadband. And we did a lot of work a couple years ago, a Supportive Services Academy, and thinking about how as a state we should be investing funds to better stand up the support systems for all the people that are being trained through WIOA dollars, to make it so that it's not just an exercise in training, but in really being able to not just get, but retain employment. So I could go on and on. Rebecca, you've already been called out as being a force. I will also say, Janice, you too are a force. I would not be here without you as well. And just an honor to work with everyone.
Thank you, Hope. Well, one of our newest leadership committee members is Bashara Addison, now with the Fund for Economic Future. Bashara, can you jump in?
Sure. And thank you for having me. I love being a part of the Ohio Workforce Coalition. So I'm Bashara Addison, and I'm the Director of Job Preparation at the Fund for Economic Future. And but a lot of my career really started with Towards Employment. And I know Joe Rosica, the President and CEO, is on the call. And I really think of myself, since we're all workforce professionals, as basically having a career as an apprentice in workforce, working under Jill's leadership, where I had a chance to think about not only about workforce best practices, but how those practices and the needs of individuals receiving services translated into public policy. I think when being a part of the Ohio Workforce Coalition meant that I was really active with the National Skills Coalition too, which was one of my favorite parts of being in the Ohio Workforce Coalition. I love the conferences. I love the opportunity to hear the national perspective. And Rebecca always does a really good job of connecting back to what's happening nationally to how we can influence better at the state level. I think if a slide or two back, Rebecca kind of highlighted some of the priorities. And one of the reasons why I'm still involved and love being involved with the Ohio Workforce Coalition has to do with the alignment of priorities. The three areas that OWC is focused on are three areas that are priorities in the Fund for Economic Future portfolio, not necessarily from a public policy standpoint, but thinking about how we philanthropically invest in those. And because I don't get to work on public policy on a daily basis the way that I would love to in this new role that I have, it's important for me to be involved with OWC so that I can stay connected and stay up to date on how we both leverage public policy and blend philanthropy at the same time. So it's an interesting position that I have at the fund, but it's enhanced very much by my participation with OWC.
Thank you, Bashara. I appreciate that perspective, and we miss you, since I will probably have to work on scheduling for the summit. And we don't have you to do that anymore, but we miss you for other reasons and are glad to still have you involved at the leadership committee level. So last poll, does the coalition's work on network building and public policy development interest you? As we've talked about the importance of the network to drive policy, as well as the policy conversations themselves, I'm interested in whether or not this is appealing, or if you're sort of engaging with the coalition more for the information sharing and, just to have access. And I know that there's a lot of you who are new, so we're not committing you to anything based on how you answer here. Okay. So one thing that is, and you can keep answering the poll, one thing that is new this year and was relatively new when the coalition released our latest policy priorities last year was a deliberate effort to lift up racial equity across Ohio. And one of the opportunities we've been given by the National Skills Coalition is to participate in a racial equity learning group, which involves working with a team of supports from across the country, working with the NSC team, really to look at what racial equity issue we could tackle at a state policy level. So in Ohio, we have decided to take a cross-advocate approach to this. And this means partnering with the business community via Business Leaders United, which is also a National Skills Coalition initiative and represents the interests of, right now, many of the metro chambers. But we're also partnering with Advocates for Ohio's Future, which has represents a huge portion of Ohio's human service advocates. And then, of course, we bring the workforce pieces. And we are convinced that having this cross-advocate coalition, if you will, to address the benefit cliff is one way that we potentially could see movement on the cliff. And so our goal right now is to think through which policy levers from a racial equity perspective can be helpful when addressing the benefit cliff, not just to mitigate the impacts of the cliff, but to actually start making change so that individuals aren't facing the cliff. And so as we go forward, this is going to be a topic. There will be a group of people, representatives from each of these coalitions, participating on a work group to advance that agenda. We just met for the first time last week, and we'll certainly keep you posted. Right now, it's looking like we want to do something with the governor's, the report that the governor's office released early in COVID about the response to, it was called Racial Equity Strike Force, that really looked at health equity relative to COVID. And it talks a lot about data and what we need from a data perspective to be able to make better decisions. And so we're hoping to parlay that into a broader discussion. So in addition, as far as our work today, from a network building and engagement perspective, we're looking at a work group and inviting members to participate in a work group. You might call it a committee, subgroup, don't get tied up in the name, but really looking for our membership to help identify ways to build the network, engage the network, and then identify potential membership, former membership structures, and make recommendations to the leadership committee. And so, you know, working with OWC means working with me, touching base with the leadership committee, but really helping us to think through how do we diversify the network? How do we make sure that we've got representation from all of the stakeholder communities that we value? And how do we best support those members in their efforts to drive public policy? Whoop. The next group would be the Policy Development and Advocacy Work Group, working with OWC to put together a Workforce 101 for use with public officials. We find frequently talking to members of the General Assembly that there is not good understanding of the various complexities of workforce, and that workforce isn't just one system or another, that it's the interplay of multiple systems. And so we're really interested in getting support from the field to put together that Workforce 101 and then help distribute it, share it with General Assembly members. We're also looking for support and engagement in advancing the current priorities, which are the supportive service, increased supportive services, the job quality agenda, and then working more closely with OWT. And then, of course, that involves actually doing some one-on-one meetings, maybe participating in district meetings. We've talked about hosting members of our federal delegation as over the summer when they're more likely to be back in town. And so really it's a broader focus on the public policy engagement portion. So with that, I want to turn it over to John and Lori, or Lori and John, who are our public workforce system members of the coalition leadership committee, and just let them introduce themselves and say a bit about their engagement with the coalition.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rebecca. So I'm Lori Gribble McKnight. I'm the Area 14 Workforce Development Board Director. So we oversee the WEO programs in our Ohio Means Job Centers. I do in Athens, Meigs, and Perry counties. So I'm very happy to be on the Leadership Coalition for Ohio Workforce and help to represent what I feel is most important to my heart, the counties in Appalachia and rural counties. I'm excited to learn, like this is my first year on the coalition and under the leadership spotlight. So I'm excited to learn from Rebecca and all these other wonderful people that you've heard from already, and learn how to be a better advocate, especially for rural counties in Ohio.
Thank you, Lori. John, are you on? I think we might have lost him. Let's see. Kyle, is there anything you want to share at this point? Totally putting you on the spot because you're not on the screen.
No, appreciate being put on the spot, Rebecca. You know, I think from my perspective, I've always valued the Ohio Workforce Coalition. I feel like I was a very green person in the area of workforce, and over the years, I've been able to learn so much from so many of you on this call. So many thanks for that. I think also from a perspective of the Federal Reserve Bank, so I should have introduced myself as well, Kyle Fee with the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. I think the issues and the daily interactions and conversations and you know, policy conversations that I've been a part of have really always helped inform our policy and kind of what we can do to kind of add value, because the Fed can't really advocate so much for specific policies, but you know, we can do some of the convenings that's needed. We can try and create some of the larger networks or better connections with folks, and of course, you know, I've always really valued the Ohio Workforce Coalition and its members for it's a source for my research. So many different research projects that have started, and from conversations of like what would be a great piece of data for you know, for a certain cause or moving a certain issue forward, and you know, we have some of the ability to do that. So you know, I guess long story short, you know, very happy to be a member of the Ohio Workforce Coalition, and look forward to its continued success.
Thank you, Kyle. So I'm going to stop. I have one more slide, but I'm going to stop my screen share and allow any other members, if you want to jump in, but also want to hear questions, comments. I mean, having gone through this now, I'm sure it's got to feel to some of you like a sales pitch. And I guess to some extent it is. We want to see more engagement. We want to have a stronger level of participation from folks in the field. We want to know it's valuable. I'm even open to what I should stop doing and what not to bother with, because it's not useful. So Carter just mentioned in the chat, please raise your hand if you've got something to share or questions. You can call on any of the members present or past of the leadership committee who you can see, and I'm sure they'd be happy to engage as well. This is when I bite my tongue and I just can't resist the urge to talk when it's so quiet. Let's see. Judith, I saw you in the chat. Judith Crocker, I'll start calling on people. You've been working in this space for a year or two, and I'd love to hear from your engagement with the coalition, how it's been beneficial to you, what would be helpful, what's not helpful. Anything you could add, Judith?
You know, technology is also a challenge. So I just unmuted. So I guess I would just say, Rebecca, to continue sending out information about the work that you're doing as a kind of part-time retired person hanging out in this space on occasion. It's good to know what you're doing and also where there's opportunities in the environment that I'm doing work to increase awareness for people, or I'm always willing to make a phone call. I do appreciate so much the work that you guys are doing with elected officials, because some of you have heard me moan and groan about this for many, many years. It actually ticks me off because they don't have a clue and make sweeping generalizations about a population that they really don't know. And so I think the more information people like I can get from what you're doing, so when I have the opportunity, I can share it and promote it, even if it's sending email blasts to people or having a little cheat sheet when I have a chance to talk to elected officials here in Lorain County and say, by the way, did you know? So I guess that's a big thing, is the work that you guys are doing on behalf of everyone, to continue to share that so all of us are aware of it and can spread it out further.
Thanks, Judith. That's great. And actually, you know, it'd be maybe nice to have sort of a Workforce 101 one-pager that could be a cheat sheet that could go out more widely. Thank you. Jill, I see your hand up.
Yes. Hi, everybody. So I mean, I want to reiterate what so many have already said, and also to give a shout out to Rebecca, who has kept this going over all of these years. And, you know, it's like herding cats. It's not an easy task, and but yet it's a very important role to play. I just wanted to emphasize, and really to build off of what Judith just said, that sharing information is one thing, but getting actually having underlying data and research and figuring out who to go to that could provide some data that could really help amplify or underscore and give greater weight to the messages that we're trying to send. So whether that's coordinating with the National Skills Coalition for the work that they're doing, or partnering with others around the state to figure out, you know, how we can support our advocacy agenda with really solid data to amplify and strengthen our message. I think it's a key role that the coalition plays, and you know, glad to be a part of it, and thanks so much for driving it.
Thanks for weighing in. I did not ask anyone to say anything about me. It's all about you all who are actually doing the work. Just because I won't say no, it's not me. So who else? We got a comment in the chat from Dawn. Dawn, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you on board. And Jessica Borza wasn't able to join us today, but she's also engaged on the leadership committee from the Mahoning Valley. I'd love to hear from those of you who are out of our three, you know, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, what this sort of work means to your efforts and how we could connect better to some of our more, well, Youngstown's not rural, I don't mean it like that, but different communities. So Don, don't feel pressured to jump in, but you're welcome to. Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to give, you know, some space. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, again, you can reach out to, oh, Don's trying to unmute. Let me make sure. It says that talking's permitted. Don, are you there? Technology, even 2 years in, is still a challenge. Well, we'll turn back to Dawn if she is able to unmute. But again,
He is
please.
unmuted.
Are you there, Dawn? It's not cooperating. That's okay. We'll let it slide. So my last real big push is to try to get a better sense of how everyone can be engaged. And so those of you who are on the leadership committee or who are involved in current activities, you should not feel the need to respond to this, but I'm going to post a link in the chat that leads to a form that those of you who are interested in being more involved can complete to indicate how you are willing and able to be more involved. And again, this is, work group focused, but then also there's lots of other ways to support the coalition. I would love it if all of you went on Twitter and encouraged your Twitter networks to follow the coalition. But in general, just looking for any way that you want to engage. And I'm happy to have new energy as well as the esteemed leadership that we've had over the years. So I'm going to put this in the chat. And with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions, but I'm also happy to let y'all go. I should say that next month we'll be hearing from our leadership committee member, John Trott, who's done some really innovative research about using social media to assess how people are choosing to stay home or not, and what's influencing those choices. And then we've got a slate of other leadership committee members who are coordinating webinars for the balance of the year. So please, you can find the registrations via our newsletters. You can find all of the recordings on YouTube via our website. And again, please reach out. Happy to have more help making this stuff happen. And thank you very, very much for participating in today's session.